Welcome to everybody. Good to see you, Senator Brandis. Now, I just thought I might start, if we could get, and I know you did mention it, with an update on the situation on the ground in Iraq. How concerned are you about the security of Baghdad? There's been an ongoing, and I think we spoke of this last time, but there continues to be ongoing suggestions that Baghdad is in danger. So I just wonder if you could give us an update from your perspective.
I'll be up front. It's not a place I'd go on holiday. But I think when we were talking last year, it was towards the end of the major assault that Daesh had pushed through, and there were some clear concerns for the security of Baghdad and the surrounding areas. In the last few months, the Iraqi security forces have done a great job to secure Baghdad itself, and in fact, over the few months around our Christmas, they also cleared to that southwestern area down to Kabbalah as well. So I think the immediate concern that was there the middle of last year, around about August, has gone. Now that being said, they still do have IED attacks daily there in various parts of the city. But the security concerns that we had last year are now pretty much gone. Yeah.
Now, I note in Vice Admiral Johnston's press conference earlier this month that 60% of the RAAF's recent activity has taken place around Mosul. And we've also seen recent reports that Iraqi forces are preparing to retake Mosul. Are Australian forces participating, or will they participate in that offences, either on the air or in the ground?
So I don't want to talk about detail about exactly where our people are, the security concerns. I think we've been quite clear on what the AA mission is with the Special Forces at the moment, in that advise and assist down to the battalion level. And their aim being to ensure that the forces that they're working with understand the best way of integrating that joint fires, how to coordinate the planning, how to then adapt their planning on the run as the operation unfolds. So they continue to do that. The air operation for the Air Task Group roams across Iraq. Right. So you might see a concentration, depending on the operation going on, of operations up around Mosul. Depending on when the briefing was that David Johnston gave you, might have talked about the support that we gave to the Kurdish forces as they started to curve around and support the retaking of Sinjar and those areas up there. So there's been a lot of activity in that area and around the west of Erbil. Just as much air activity, depending on what's happening down around Anbar province in that corridor out to the border as well. So it just varies depending on the operation, the Iraqi operation that we're supporting at the time. And the way the tasking works, whether it's an Australian Hornet or a Danish F-16 or a Netherlands F-16 or whatever, it's just the way it works into the tasking process, the air tasking order of the day.
Now, are you confident that the Iraqi forces have the skills necessary to retake a town like Mosul? I mean, it's a famous town in terms of these sorts of troubles. What are your thoughts on the current skills for the Iraqi forces?
The current skills, what we're seeing is there are parts of the Iraqi forces that are quite skilled and they have battle experience. But there's a lot in the Iraqi forces, and you've seen it in open reporting, where there needs to be rebuilding and skills grown, and that's really the focus of the coalition in the coming months. But I don't want to comment about specific timings for operations or anything down there.
Now, just while we're mentioning training the Iraqi forces, did I read correctly that the New Zealand Prime Minister announced yesterday on the floor of his Parliament that New Zealand is sending forces for training?
You did, for training.
And did I read incorrectly, he announced that Australia is sending forces as well?
No, I think the New Zealand Prime Minister made a broad statement there, and I and my New Zealand counterpart have worked very, very closely on developing options that were put to both governments. The Government of Australia is yet to make a final decision on any follow-on.
So the fact that the Prime Minister of New Zealand's announced our deployment, you're saying there's no such decision been made?
Actually, I don't think the Prime Minister announced our deployment. I think he said contingent on an Australian decision.
Okay. It wasn't reported like that, so that's why I'm seeking clarification.
No, the CDF is right, Senator. He did not announce deployment by Australia. The word he used was contingent upon.
Yep. And the Prime Minister, Abbott, is travelling to New Zealand on Friday, is that correct?
I think he meets with his New Zealand counterpart at some point over the weekend.
I think that's the case.
So he's travelling to New Zealand Friday over the weekend?
Well,
I don't know his exact
I don't know
movements.
when he's precisely moving, but meeting over the weekend.
Security matter. Now, I wanted to talk about and I appreciate we've changed its name again from ISIL to ISIS to, is it Daesh or?
Yeah, and we go with Daesh. There's a lot of discussion on why Daesh. The local regional countries call them Daesh. And to stay consistent, we've decided to go the same. Otherwise, it's quite interesting when you're in a group of 30 chiefs, and many of them are from those Arabic nations around the region. They're talking Daesh, we're talking ISIL. It's just easier to have a consistent term there.
All right, well, hopefully I'll manage to get it right. Now, I was just wondering if you could tell us about the current disposition of the Daesh forces, as best you can without revealing anything that's military sensitive.
Yeah.
So are they operating within cities or from military camps? I'm just interested in trying to understand what you're up against.
No, what has happened, as we envisage with the air operation and the campaign, we have stopped their ability to mass their forces in the open and move openly. And that's forced them to look at how they might operate, how they might cache themselves, where they go into garrison. They tend to be in the larger cities, in with the population. And as always, we're concerned about collateral damage and civilian casualties. So they know that, but we continue to make sure that we minimise any collateral damage when we're targeting. So they do that. What we've found is, as I said in my opening statement, is they're now gone on the defensive. They are building berms, they're building barriers around the terrain that they've taken so far in the major city like Mosul. In the Anbar province, we're finding that their strategic gains are no longer there, but they'll have tactical wins, and their social media is very strong, and they will take any tactical victory and try and make it a strategic victory, and you see that quite often there. We see in some of the villages around Anbar, coalition forces predominantly, obviously the Iraqi forces themselves, will push and take back a village, and they'll go head to another village and try and attack that as well. So we see that sort of movement around the Anbar province. But I would say, for all intents and purposes, their major push, their major strategic message of being able to establish a caliphate is in question. You'd have to say that. They banked a lot around Kobani in Syria. They lost that, and they lost somewhere around about 2,000 fighters. A lot of them foreign fighters in that fight.
Now, I know this may be just impossible, or any idea what their rough numbers are?
I would have to take that on notice and look at it, because the numbers do vary depending on how you measure it.
And I might add, Senator, the estimates vary enormously.
No, as I said, it may be impossible to give even a rough ballpark figure for that reason.
You've really got to think of the estimates. If you get within 5,000 of the actual figure, you're probably doing pretty well.
Right. Yeah, it varies.
It depends whether you're counting Syria, it depends whether you're counting... So
and is it in Iraq, is it in Syria? But
best estimate
I'll grab you the latest number before we break.
Now, are they still running roadblocks and checkpoints, or have you managed to eliminate that practice?
They still do try and set up checkpoints, but that makes them quite obvious, and the checkpoint soon disappears in a bit of dust.
So we've completely degraded their ability to move in large groups, convoys with large armoured vehicles they may have captured?
In large groups, they do move, they do pick, and they are adapting. So they do pick the times that they can move. Obviously, over winter, there's been some bad weather over there, and they've exploited that, and that allows them to get around. But in large groups, they're quite vulnerable. To give you an example, they don't fly their flag anymore in their vehicles. That's a bit of an obvious one. Their senior leadership aren't wearing uniforms, so they're quite worried about the fact that they're getting targeted from the air.
Okay. Now, could I get if it's possible, you'll probably need to take this on notice, but a timeline on our activity since the last round of estimates, indicative dates now, and then follow up with the exact dates. But happy for you to take that on notice.
In what way? Sorry,
just to say deployments, troops in, troop stations, missions, sorties, that sort of just a timeline, so we can keep track of what's been happening. So I appreciate you wouldn't be able to give that to me.
I actually can give it to you now.
Okay, please. Yeah, that'd be great.
So if we go back to 20th of June last year. So back then, you may remember that this was a period when Baghdad was under significant threat. So we did deploy a small detachment of personnel to support the embassy staff in Baghdad, and we've talked about that previously. That's just to help them in their planning. On the 8th of August 2014, the US authorised airstrikes and humanitarian efforts for civilians in that Mount Sinjar area. On the 14th of August, the United Nations declared a level 3 emergency for Iraq in order to facilitate mobilisation of additional resources and goods and funds and assets. Also on the 14th of August, we had a RAAF C-130J aircraft deliver 9 tonnes of supplies to Yazidi civilians trapped on Mount Sinjar. That was the first of our airdrops in there. That was a very complex mission. The C-130 crew did a great job. On the 31st of August, Prime Minister announced Australia would join international partners to help the anti-Daesh forces in Iraq. 31st of August, we had C-130J RAAF aircraft deliver 15 bundles of Australian humanitarian supplies to isolated civilians in northern Iraqi town of Amili. That's on the northeast of Baghdad. 3rd of September, we had a C-17 complete its military stores mission to Erbil. That was the first of those ammunition resupplies. Did a second one on the 5th of September. Third one on the 8th of September. On the 14th of September, the Prime Minister announced that following a specific request from the US, we'd supply 600 personnel comprising an air task group and an SOTG to support the coalition force against Daesh. 17th of September, we had an RAAF C-17 deliver another arms shipment into Erbil. That was against small arms, the ammunition we'd spoken about. Also in September, on the 25th, we had an RAAF C-130 complete its 5th military stores mission into Erbil. On the 1st of October, I think from memory, was our first combat operations over Iraq with the E-7A Wedgetail and the KC-30 tanker aircraft conducting enabler missions over Iraq. We were authorised to, on the 3rd of October, for us to be able to conduct airstrikes in Iraq, and shortly thereafter we had armed Hornet aircraft flying their first combat missions over Iraq, 5th and 6th of October. And then on the 21st of November, the SOTG commenced their advise and assist support to Iraqi forces. So that's a good summary of the build-up of the timeline.
Thank you very much for that.